This is in between everything, the space between heartbreak, healing, becoming, and being. I knew this had to be the first episode, not because it's easy to talk about, but because it's the part of my story that's changing me in real time. My mother has dementia. It's still hard to say, and it's not because I don't accept it, but because I know what it's taken from her and from all of us. It's not just about her memory fading, it's about watching the woman who raised me slowly become someone I don't always recognize. It's about losing her a little more each day, even while she's still here. And grief like this doesn't follow rules. It's long, uneven, holding both love and heartbreak in the same breath. And then there's that part we don't talk about, the family dynamics, the silence, the control, the decisions made behind closed doors, the way grief can pull people together. It can also tear them apart. And for me, it's been both. I've been grieving my mother while also grieving the family I thought I had. This isn't about blame, it's about truth. It's about learning to hold space for both love and anger, confusion, clarity, exhaustion. It's about the in between, the messy space where love doesn't have a clear ending and healing hasn't fully begun. At first, it was small things, moments you could almost easily laugh off if you wanted to. My mom would forget where she put her keys or call to tell me the same story twice in one day. She was repeating herself more, losing her train of thought mid-conversation, and I just brushed it off as normal aging. But my oldest niece kept saying something's off with Grandma. She noticed before any of us did, and I remember telling her she's just getting older. I remember just always trying to explain away what she saw. And looking back, she clocked it before any of us paid it any real attention. Then, sometime around 2020, everything started to shift. My phone would ring at 2 or 3 in the morning, my mom calling panicked, asking me to take her to the hospital because she thought she was dying. Some nights she'd call saying there was a man outside her window or that someone was trying to break in. And those calls became so frequent that we installed a camera outside of her home that me and my siblings regularly monitored. There was never a man outside, but her fear persisted. I started to realize these weren't random moments. They were patterns. The visits to the ER were too many to count. She had started locking herself out of her bank account. She would try to access her accounts often, and she would often forget the answers to her challenge questions. She would forget her passwords, and so she was regularly being locked out of her account. That's when we started to piece together that something deeper was happening. And even still, getting her to accept that anything was wrong felt like mission impossible. She did not believe me. She did not believe my siblings. She thought we were just trying to take away her independence, and I think in some ways we were, because at this point, keeping her safe meant stepping into her world and rearranging it. The signs just kept coming. She'd get lost driving to places she'd been going to for years. She'd forget appointments, forget that she'd already eaten, forget entire conversations. And then one Sunday after church, she could not find her car. If you know my mom, you know she never missed church. Every Sunday she'd go, and then she'd head to Luby's with her friends. That day, she walked out of Luby's, stood in the parking lot, and couldn't remember which car was hers. She wandered around confused until someone who knew her called my brother for help. Now, this wasn't the moment, but it definitely made everything real. We'd been asking, explaining, hoping that someone would connect the dots for us. But this was when we knew that waiting and hoping that a medical provider would listen to us and hear us had to end. Like, we had to push and try harder. Over the course of 2022 and 2023, we attended numerous appointments with my mother and her primary care physician. We asked emergency room staff and social workers for guidance, hoping someone would help us get answers. But despite our efforts, we couldn't get anyone to take our concerns seriously. By and large, a dementia evaluation requires the patient's participation, consent, and willingness to acknowledge what's happening. My mother was firmly in denial. She did not see or couldn't see the changes we've been witnessing, and without her cooperation, every attempt to move forward hit a wall. We didn't realize then, but this is a very common scenario. Many individuals in the early stages of dementia experience something called anosognosia, which is a lack of awareness or denial of their own symptoms. They truly do not see their decline, and it makes early evaluation nearly impossible. Still, most primary care providers rely heavily on patient self-reporting to initiate cognitive screening. If the patient says they're fine, the concern ends there, even when families speak up. And to be clear, we were speaking up. We were consistently told that everything we were talking about was a normal sign of aging. This pattern doesn't just cause emotional exhaustion, it has real medical consequences. When months or even years are lost pleading for an evaluation, so are critical opportunities to slow down the progression of the disease. Early interventions, medications, and lifestyle adjustments that could maintain independence longer are missed. And for families like ours, that delay means watching symptoms worsen while still being told, wait and see. And for Black families like ours, that delay is even more common. Research shows our communities are often diagnosed 2 to 3 years later than white patients, even when symptoms present at similar stages. It's obviously a disparity driven by implicit bias, inconsistent screening practices, and the same systemic failures that silence caregivers who are sounding the alarm early on. We were watching the beginning of a change in my mother's mind and our relationship with her, our role as her children. Every single thing that existed for us was changing. After a full 2 years of being relentless, we finally got a referral to the University of Texas Comprehensive Memory Center. The evaluation process, MRIs, cognitive tests, was so hard because every step required her cooperation, and every step was a fight. She was angry and scared and in denial. And looking back at it now, I can't blame her. Losing pieces of yourself is terrifying. On the ground, in the moment, I remember being extremely upset with her because it felt like she was making everything difficult. Every time it felt like we were making a step forward, her denial or refusal to acknowledge anything that we observed felt like it pushed us 10 steps back. At that time, it was mostly me and my sister managing everything. My brother was in North Carolina, so his help was limited. When he finally moved home, it didn't bring relief, it just introduced a new kind of hurdle. We had all been so hopeful that his presence would make things easier, but by then, my mother had lost her understanding of who he was. She knew his name, but did not know his place in her life. She often referred to him as her brother, and she was deeply afraid of him. No amount of conversation or gentle prompting could ease her fear. And seeing him have to move through that and navigate that was very heartbreaking. We were all searching for a version of her that was slipping further away with each passing day. I didn't realize it then, but we were already living in the in-between. The space where you're still caring for someone who is physically present, they are quickly drifting away. And then on March 6th, 2024, we got her official diagnosis, moderate to moderately severe dementia. The doctor told us that she could not drive anymore. She was recommending that she no longer drive, that my mother would need daily support to keep her safe and to ensure her care. My lease was ending, so I decided I would move home, take on the responsibility of being her primary caregiver, and be the buffer while we figured out a long-term plan for her daily support needs. Definitely a choice that I made out of love, and it's also the choice that began to unravel everything else. At the beginning, we thought we were on the same page. We agreed I would manage her day-to-day, and my siblings would handle other parts of her support. As her needs grew, also so did the responsibility. And at that point, we needed authority to be able to access information with her doctors, to be able to, pay her bills and access her funds. And so the social worker that we had been working with at UT sent over 2 different templates to us via email. She sent us a medical power of attorney form that she said we could try to get my mom to agree to and get notarized. She also sent us a durable power of attorney template and gave us the same advice. At the time, I don't think any of us had a clear understanding on exactly what those two documents gave us authority over. But we thought the durable power of attorney covered everything, right? And so that is the document that we chose to execute. Because of how the notary form was structured, only one person's name could be listed on that form. Initially, all three of our names were on that durable power of attorney, but the notary mentioned an issue with the formatting of the document. Keep in mind, at this time, my mom is pretty upset with me and my siblings because she is in full disagreement with our assessment of her symptoms, of the changes that we've seen, and now a doctor agrees with us. She no longer trusts us, to be perfectly honest with you. And so even trying to get her to agree to this durable power of attorney was painstaking. I remember we all set up a time that we were going to meet at her house and talk to her and hope that she would agree to sign this document so that we would be able to manage and support her need. I vividly remember at this point, my mom was really having a difficult time staying present in conversations. She was often drifting. And so that was another concern because in order to sign over a durable power of attorney or even a medical power of attorney, you have to have the cognitive ability to do that, right? A notary has to feel sure and confident that you have a full understanding of what you are signing. And there were real concerns that my mother did not have capacity to do that. In the moment, it just felt like a practical thing that we needed to do. And as long as one of us was able to be on that form, we would be able to manage and support her the ways that we needed to. Over time, that decision became something else entirely, something I regret with every fiber of my being. After about 4.5 months of caregiving, I made the difficult decision to move. I love my mom deeply, but I wasn't feeling supported, not logistically, not emotionally, and I just realized that continuing to live in her home wasn't sustainable for me or my family. My daughter was in her final semester of her senior year of high school, and I had a 14-month-old baby who also needed my attention. On top of that, I was also working full time. When I moved out, my mother eventually went to live with my sister, who was retired and able to care for her full time. My brother and I shifted into a more supportive role, picking her up on weekends and helping out wherever we could. But soon, even those acts of involvement began to feel strained. The decision to sell my mother's home became a breaking point. Communication between our sibling group nearly disappeared. Our exclusion in matters concerning our mother's home became impossible to ignore. Her home, the house that held decades of memories, was sold by my sister and her husband. We were largely excluded from that process. My mom was eventually moved into a memory care facility. I was not part of that decision, neither was my brother. We were informed 2 weeks before she moved into that facility, not consulted. 2 months into her new living situation, I started to notice drastic changes. She was heavily medicated. She could barely stay awake. I remember being so excited about her birthday. Her birthday is April the 7th. So this is almost a full 2 months since she moved into that facility. And I remember having big plans for what I wanted to do with her on her birthday. I wanted to go pick her up. I wanted to take her shopping. I wanted to take her to dinner. And when I got to the facility, the director at that time had shared with me that earlier in the day my mom had been out with my sister and that she had fallen and that she was not really steady on her feet, so to be careful. Okay. I get my mom into my car and it becomes extremely clear that every plan I had for that day was going to be scrapped. My mom could not keep her eyes awake. She was having difficulty walking. Something was off. I made attempts to find out what was going on with her at that point. And every call I made to her primary care physician, even down to the memory care facility, routed back to my sister, who at that point had stopped speaking to me altogether. She was upset over a Google review I wrote, which was an honest reflection of my experience and my concern about the memory care facility she'd chosen on her own. That single act of truth-telling became the wedge that closed the door of communication between us. Not long after, I found out my mom had been moved to hospice, not from a family call or a formal notice, but from an aide at the memory care facility who mentioned it casually to one of my aunts. Every piece of information about my mother Even details about her medication came to me secondhand through whispers and casual remarks from staff who spoke carelessly as if our connection to her were just small talk. That's the moment I knew I had to seek legal help, not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. Because by then, that same durable power of attorney we'd all met up at mom's house to execute in good faith was being used as a barrier between me and my mother. It was also being used as a medical power of attorney. This is not about reliving pain. It's about naming what happened so others can prepare better. The durable power of attorney, which should have been limited to finances, began to be used as if it covered medical authority too. It was treated as though it granted control over every aspect of my mother's care. Those quiet but extremely loud exclusions that started with the sale of my mother's house extended now to consent forms signed with medical providers that did not include me or my brother's name, and medical updates that we never received, despite asking. Documents being completed and filed without my name or my brother's name listed anywhere. And I want to be honest here, I don't believe those omissions were accidental. They were decisions, deliberate ones, that effectively erased us from being part of her care coordination. It is one thing to lose your mother to dementia. It is another to be told you have no right to know how she's being cared for. Whole other layer of grief, bureaucratic, legal, insane. I also want to flag here that even with my attorney calling out that the durable power of attorney was being misused and abused to exclude my mother's children from rightfully knowing anything about her medically, even with my lawyer sending letters to my mother's medical providers, to the memory care facility, and to my sister, I still had to get on the phone and make several calls over and over, send emails to providers before they would actually listen, give me and my brother access to know anything about my mother. It wasn't just as simple as my attorney sending a letter. It literally required the letter and then constant follow-up for me via phone and email. If you take nothing else from this episode, I hope that you take this. Please do your paperwork and do it with understanding. A durable power of attorney is not a medical power of attorney, and one document signed too quickly without context can alter the course of your family. Talk about things while you still can. Name who you trust. Put it in writing. Ask questions. Don't assume love will protect you from misunderstanding, because I believe with everything in me that if my mother could have made those decisions herself, she would have wanted all of her children to have a seat at the table. Her care would look different. Her peace would look different. Maybe our family would too. I don't have closure, and I've come to accept that I may never. Some days I feel so grounded. Other days I am angry. Grief like this does not have a rhythm. It just moves right through you. But I'm still here, still showing up for her and for myself, still learning that healing doesn't always look like forgiveness. Sometimes it looks like truth spoken out loud. That is where I am, in the in-between of love, loss, anger, and acceptance, heartbreak, and hope. Until next time, I hope you hold space for your own in-between. I will talk to you later, friends. Bye.